that special meeting for the Board of Supervisors is called to order for Tuesday, June 13th, 2023 at 10 a.m. in the Board of Supervisors hearing room 1415 Melody Lane. Any item on this agenda is open for discussion and possible action. We still have the same three members of the board present, and anyone who would like to attend can by Teams, and that is the procedure still the same. So the action items, we have number one, adopt the tentative county budget. So I need a motion on that.
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the tentative county budget for fiscal year 2023-2024 in the amount of $277,936,938. This amount is comprised of $105,461,808 in general fund and $172,475,130 in special revenue funds, and approve the funding request as set forth in the attached exhibit.
I wonder if there's any difference between comprised and composed. It doesn't bother me. Okay. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And there'll be a presentation, I'm guessing.
There will be. Thank you once again.
Mr. Karwachka.
Madam Chair, Supervisor English, and Supervisor Crosby. So this is our presentation for the tentative budget, and we'll begin with our budget manager, Juan Frisbee.
So the first slide is our property tax. We are projected to go towards our 27 million levy collection for revenues. So I'll start off by going over our revenues. Next is our county sales tax. We are projected to go towards what we projected for last year, but we're not doing better than what we did back in FY21. Our state sales tax did outperform what we expected, but however, we did budget for the same amount as in last year. Well, we projected 0.5 higher for FY24.
And the total is?
15.4. Our general fund balance is projected to end at 39 million for cash. Our end of year projections. General fund is projected to have 77 million in revenue, 68 in expenses. HERF 11 million revenue, 10 in expenses. Capital fund 3.3 and 600,000 in expenses. Well, 591,128. Next up is our budget summary. So our total funds is for adopted was 250 million as of FY23. For FY24, we're projecting for $277,936,938, mainly due to special revenue funds increase.
Click on the microphone. So once again, we're talking about the budget, and it's built around that flat rate. So that's the direction that I received from the board. The rate previously was 2.6747, and even though keeping the rate flat, the valuations will increase the levy. Therefore, we do need a truth and taxation hearing, which once again would be July 11th, 2023. We have always been conservative in our budget amounts to make sure that we budget accurately and that we're not put in a bad position. In this year's budget, we also talked about increasing or putting an amount for salary increases, which is roughly over $2 million. Now, that is something that we can safely move forward on. I know Supervisor Crosby mentioned the increase in valuations. That's where we're going to go. And so if you see, once again, the rate is flat, but because of the valuations have increased, the levy has increased and has given us some room to provide for salary increases and also to make some accommodations for the requests that elected officials have been made and that you've seen presentations for that are attached to this slide. So I don't know if there's any questions. Yes.
Yeah, I think I made it clear, possibly previous discussions about inflation and salary increases and valuation of the property, that in my opinion, it is going to be the valuation that it most closely matches the rate of inflation, which is going to match salary increases, if any. So I think in the last couple slides, I saw two figures of increase, and one was 15% and one was 11%. Is that what I saw, or was I mistaken about that? Like, okay, I saw, where's a 15 enterprise fund? Was there any other overall measurement about 15% that I saw as an increase somewhere?
Special revenue, 13%.
I saw that. Thank you, Madeline. But I was wondering about an overall one like the 11%. And then I wanted to, if there isn't, that's fine. I'd rather see the 11% increase. And Mr. Frisbee and I, we talked extensively about PSPRS, and we talked about inflation. So could you tell us about the total overall fund increase of 11% versus what we're seeing as our current inflation rate this year?
Could you rephrase the question?
Sure. Well, my point would be, if we're seeing 6% inflation, then things like earnings are actually lower, and in terms of real buying power. So that's what I was getting at. So with the change in the budget of 11% and at least 6% inflation, I just wondered if you had any comments about inflation versus a increase in budget of 11%, and what the current rate of inflation is that you believe is we're being subjected to, if you happen to know.
Well, I won't address the inflation question, since this is the increases, although the county and the budget is affected by inflation, not necessarily these increases are inflation. Like I mentioned, a lot of these increases are grants that were given to the county. So yeah, like the majority of what we were affected by was having more grants into. Yep.
So that's less of an effect than property valuation?
If I may, Supervisor Crosby, is that okay? So the valuations are delayed when they come in. They're 2 years delayed from the valuations, and the valuation increases about what we're seeing. So we do see an overall increase. And as you mentioned, inflation has an effect on the budget, because that's part of our revenues when we talk about sales tax, correct? So
yeah, and so is valuations, right? That's what we're talking about. Inflation on property, except for new construction.
okay, so and that's what I was confused about. I don't know if you're talking about general overall inflation of price of goods and services or the valuations of the property. But valuation of the property have increased. That gives us an opportunity. When we talk about a flat tax rate, there is an increase so that we can afford these things, as you mentioned before, for salary increases. So we have budgeted conservatively for that. But there, regarding an overall inflation, that does have an effect on the amount of revenues we collect.
Okay, what did you mean by something or other is delayed? Valuations are delayed by 2 years.
So valuations of property, and when they are presented, it's not the valuation of what the property is as of today.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a delay in the amount of valuation of what property is. That property was evaluated previously, and that's what we're seeing, and what we use that to proceed with our levy. Is that? So it's not real time. It's not.
There's several funds that are like that. Yeah, they come in already.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Frisbee. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Cohen.
Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you.
Thank you, board, for the questions. Are there any more? Or any comments?
I have a comment, though. I think that the public deserves to know that while you may not have been fond of the recent problems with the pandemic, there was good news that came with the pandemic and with the federal government, and we were able to take from those funds that the federal government sent to us and utilize them in our general fund to the tune of almost $10 million. And so I want the public to understand that this money that's being spent isn't certainly all of your taxpayer dollars. It's coming from the federal government. It's coming through different sources. The Sheriff's Department in particular has been able to bring in several $1 million to add to the values that we have and to help with the services that we provide, and not on the backs of the taxpayers. So the taxpayers locally, I should say, every dollar that we get comes from a taxpayer somewhere. But I wanted the people to understand that this board is conservative in its thinking of spending money, but it's very active in going out and trying to find money to add to the budget so that we don't have to go to the taxpayer for everything that we need locally. So I think that's an important factor for them to consider, is the fact that while the budget is growing, the activities in order to secure the money have been growing. And it's to the benefit of the taxpayers that we're able to provide more services without asking them for more dollars.
That's an interesting comment, Madam English, and I appreciate your perspective. And you've talked a lot, in the past about cost shifting between states, so on. And it's my impression that most of our citizens probably pay federal income tax also.
Yep. And the state shared revenue that we get back. So this isn't just our taxpayers here when that's all she meant. We benefit as a whole, as a nation, and that's not a bad thing. Okay, so are there any more comments or questions? Hearing none, we will vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 The chair votes aye, and the motion carries unanimously. The truth in taxation hearing, item number 2.
Madam Chair, I move we set a truth in taxation hearing pursuant to ARS 42-17107 for July 11th, 2023 at 10 a.m. in the Board of Supervisors hearing room, 1415 Melody Lane, Building G, Bisbee, Arizona, to receive public comment on the proposed tax levy.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 The chair votes aye, and the motion carries unanimously. This is our next meeting will be Tuesday, June 20th at 10 a.m. in the Board of Supervisors hearing room for a regular board meeting, and all these hearings are adjourned.